Welcome to Public Safety Talk Radio, the podcast for all of our heroes in public safety, including law enforcement professionals, firefighters, EMTs, corrections officers, healthcare workers, and more. This show is produced by the POCUA and is founded upon its Soundness Initiative. This episode is sponsored by Police Mortgage. Police Mortgage is a full-service mortgage company dedicated to serving police officers and first responders. Founded in 2008, Police Mortgage offers a variety of mortgage products tailored to meet the needs of those who serve and protect. Police Mortgage, for first responders who are second to none. I am Ken Bader, your host for Public Safety Talk Radio, and we're gonna make a record today. Not a record in the vinyl sense for those that are old enough to remember that, but a record in terms of one guy being on Public Safety Talk Radio more so than anybody else. We are bringing back Randy Sutton, who I know you know, 34 years, an honorable police officer, started The Wounded Blue, has written many, many books. I can go on and on. But we're going to talk about his latest book that I'm going to read as soon as I learn how to read, Rescuing 911. Randy, welcome to the show. Welcome back.
You mean that one?
That one, yeah. Very sharp. You can get yours on Amazon today for birthdays. Christmas is coming up, all that. In fact, it's Amazon deal days, I think. Maybe you can get like a pack of 10 even cheaper. So welcome back, my friend.
It's always a pleasure, Ken. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, always.
I have my co
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think I'd rather talk to the kitty than you.
She'll probably be smarter.
Well, I know she'll be smarter than most Democrats. Maybe I'll edit that out. Maybe I won't. We'll see. But let's dig into Rescuing 911, getting into a serious mode for a couple seconds, which you know I don't like to do for too long. But yeah, I haven't had a chance to read much of it, but I have gone through a little bit of it. And I understand the premise for writing it, and I agree with it 100%. You even mentioned, I believe, in a couple of pages here, what would it be like if you dialed 911 and all you got was a ring and a ring and a ring, or even worse, a busy signal, and you targeted, two particular cities, or mentioned two particular cities, one my hometown of Chicago and one where I live now in Los Angeles. And I think that, what you say is perfectly true, unfortunately. So talk about the motivation for writing Rescuing 911 and what you're hoping to change out there with this book.
Oh, I'm glad you asked that question. This is different than the other books I've written.
Yeah.
This is my fifth book, and this is a nonfiction. It's based on the criminal justice crisis that we are still in the midst of. The criminal justice crisis that we've been facing for a number of years, and it catalogs how we got here. Where did this come from? Where did this insanity that law enforcement has been facing across this nation with the plight of the law enforcement community, the war on cops, the failure to retain great cops, the failure to recruit great cops. How did we get here? And so I start there, and of course that started with President Obama. He began the disrespect at the highest level of government when he came out with the police acted stupidly when they arrested his buddy in the Ivy League, at the Ivy League school. That was completely, it was a mischaracterization, but it really showed what he truly felt about police.
Mm-hmm.
And that began the slide that we are still in the midst of. So it talks a little bit about the history, how we got here, but it's also a call to action, Ken. It's a call to action that we as a nation must unite if we are to protect the national public safety. That it's as simple as that. We can't stand on the sidelines anymore. The silent majority cannot be silent. It's a call to activism, but activism on the part of good citizens, good people that want to get involved, even if their activism is only educating yourself as to the issues that are covered in this book, and the
Mm-hmm.
ability to get off your butt and go to that voting booth and put people into office that deserve to be there. There's so much apathy when it comes down to voting. There's a very small amount of people that actually go to the polls and put people into positions of authority and positions of leadership that are destroying cities.
Correct.
It's insane. And so it's a very easy to read book. I literally, we're not talking about War and Peace here. We're
Mm-hmm.
talking about a smaller book that is absolutely easy to read. You could do it in a few hours, and then hand it off to your family and to your friends, because it's critical. I point out stuff in here that that America needs to know. And
Mm-hmm.
if every American read this book, we would have a different playing field, for sure.
Yeah, I'm not gonna hand it off because I plan on reading it on a 1 hour flight next month, because that's where I do all my reading. I'm too
Oh
busy
yeah,
at
that
home,
that
but you know.
it's great reading. That's perfect time.
But I'll be at a flight for an hour where there's no TV on the back of my seat, so I'll dig into the book, and I'll keep it for myself because I've already planned on a few family members that I still talk to that I will just say are not stupid but naive, that need to read this book,
Yeah,
and not to get into too many personal things, but there's I know that much of our audience has the same issues. They'll sit around at Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter and have some really really hard conversations that aren't fun.
yeah.
And it's funny, to get to that. I'll come back around to rescuing 911, but it's an interesting story. Not too long ago, I listened to another podcast where you were a guest. I don't remember the podcast offhand, probably because it wasn't as good as Public Safety Talk Radio, but was still still a very good podcast. And you were doing the interview, and you talked about 2014 and what happened in Ferguson and so forth. And I remember exactly where I was when those Ferguson riots were happening. I was actually in Hawaii with my wife, and we were watching it on TV. And being, the founder of the Police Officers Credit Union Association, I remember yelling at the screen, saying, "Where's Obama? Where's Obama in this? When is he going to hop on a plane, and go to St. Louis and say, look, this is not how we operate here. You're burning down, your fellow man's businesses here, for a cause that isn't even a cause. A criminal was shot and killed for Christ's sake."
The great lie of Ferguson. That's it.
Yeah, and I remember, a few years later, well before I had the pleasure of meeting you, arguing with some family members, saying, "Well, why are you so pro police?" And I pointed to the fact, in my opinion, that this whole anti-law enforcement sentiment, in my mind, really started at Ferguson. And I think you mentioned something to the same effect on this
Very
other
much so.
podcast.
Very
And
much
and,
so.
and other people are like, "Oh, you're just coming to conclusions and everything else." And then I happen to talk to more police officers like yourself, and having even come to that opinion on my complete own, a number of law enforcers say, "No, you know what? You're exactly right. We feel exactly the same."
Yeah. Oh yeah. You can look at some of the milestones in law enforcement history that that were watershed moments. And the reality is this, that um, there have been so many lies, misstatements, all devised by the political left, that has been very, very effective in dismantling or attempting to dismantle the system of public safety and the criminal justice system in America. And it is not by accident.
Mhm.
And that's what America needs to realize, that you're being played. You're being played by some very powerful people, and a lot of money is behind this.
Are you looking for a podcast to answer some financial questions? Well, then check out the Mortgage Beat podcast, brought to you by Police Mortgage, for first responders who are second to none. Mortgage Beat gives insight into the home loan process specifically for police officers, firefighters, and other public safety professionals. The podcast is hosted by Police Mortgage CEO John Aritos, who has decades of experience in the mortgage industry. Check out Mortgage Beat on Spotify today.
Let's look at the events of just the last couple of days, Ken.
Mm-hmm.
We have seen activism that has turned into some of the most dangerous attacks that I've ever seen on law enforcement. Organized deadly attacks. We had 10 people in concert with one another attack a facility, shoot a police officer, and were fully prepared for combat. And it happened twice in 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
That should frighten every American.
It
These are like,
frightens me.
it's like guerrilla tactics are here in America, and the fear level that these people are displaying is that they don't fear. They don't fear. They don't fear the police. They don't fear the federal authorities. They don't fear accountability. And that's unfortunately has been part of what has led us down to this path, the failure of accountability for criminal actions.
Yeah, I don't. I'm preaching to the choir here. I don't understand it. I don't understand Democrats calling for violence. I don't understand. It's one thing to protest. I support that. You want to peacefully protest. That's part of who we are in America. But to actually think about, plan, and actually go through the action of going out as a group to attack law enforcement, that is so beyond my realm of thinking. I can't even grasp my mind about around it.
Yeah, and you look at the people that are doing it. It's Antifa. It's the same people that were involved in the George Floyd insanity.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same philosophical bent. It's the same. It's all part and parcel of the same um, uh, issues that we've seen in the past, playing out once again and getting worse, getting more organized, more violent, and then just like I began when President Obama came out and disrespected law enforcement. Now you have tons of Democratic leadership at all levels
Mm-hmm.
condoning violence, encouraging violence, encouraging a system of literally blatantly uh, putting the lives of police officers and federal officers in danger,
Mm-hmm.
and going about this in such a dramatic way that they feel encouraged, they feel enabled to
Empowered.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really a frightening thing to see. We're seeing the moral degeneration of our nation. We're seeing the end of the social contract, and that's a big deal. The end of the social contract, which has basically kept law enforcement at least relatively safe over the last several hundred years.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a very complicated issue, and it's one that really needs to be tackled.
Yeah, well, on that note, it's a great segue because, obviously I want, as many people, whether you are here, as I got my blurry
Yeah, yeah, it's a little weird,
background
man.
on.
A little
Yeah,
weird.
so Yeah, but it's rescuing 911. Obviously anybody that is pro law enforcement, or frankly anybody that's somewhere on the gray area, that is just, kind of apathetic towards law enforcement but doesn't hate them and just wants to, be freaking safe, should buy the book.
Yeah.
But to kind of cut to the chase, here I'm a civilian. I was happy to buy the book. I'm happy to support the Wounded Blue, which I do. I'm happy to support my local Long Beach police officers association. So I'm anybody that's even has an inkling of anti-law enforcement, I just simply don't vote for. So happy to have, Nathan Hockman at least here in
Yeah.
Los Angeles County,
Huge difference. Huge
who
difference.
actually believes in the law. Go figure. But obviously as a civilian, I'm doing everything I think I can. Is there anything that we or even I could be doing more of out there to support law enforcement and get us to a point where some of this craziness from your Karen Basses and Brandon Johnsons, Rex Richardsons and Mondamis and everybody else out there?
No, what you're doing is you're amplifying common sense, and the fact that you're an activist, and in the best sense of the word, and that's what the book's about. Become an activist. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, talk to your relatives. Try to understand what the realities are, and don't fall for the insanity that the left is putting out. And let's right this ship. It's going to
Mhm.
take a long time. Right now, we're seeing some good signs. We're seeing, and I fully believe this, that the vast majority of America supports its law enforcement. It's been shown in every study. We're seeing at least a little bit of a rise in the respect level. We're starting to see recruitment, kind of rise up a little bit. I mean, look what happened in the military. The military,
Oh yeah.
it's unbelievable the difference, and that's going to trickle down to the law enforcement community as well.
Mhm. I just want to let you know ahead of time that I'm going to grab that little snippet where you said I have common sense, and I'm going to put it on my phone next time I have a cigar with you. um, but yeah, maybe I'm naive or over over, or what's the word, I'm over optimistic. But I agree with you. I do see very small, but significant changes. Whether it be people just kind of saying hey thanks to police officers as they walk by, to
I'm glad you brought that up.
yeah,
I just want to
go
say
for it,
something
man.
here. This is interesting. I am receiving, um, comments from cops from all over the nation. I literally interact with police officers 24/7
Yeah.
from all over the nation. And there's more cops telling me that people are saying thank you to them, that they can't walk out of a coffee shop without somebody paying for their coffee. And this is something, this is really America speaking in
Hmm.
this small way of appreciation. So America in reality supports and loves their police community. And so and the cops are recognizing it. Cops are seeing it. So
Yeah.
it's really a step in the right direction.
Yeah, it is. It's not as big a step as I would personally like, but a step nonetheless. And I think, I encourage some of these folks. It's interesting, a guest that I had a week or two ago, off camera and with the microphone off. We were joking. He lives in a blue city, and he's definitely a conservative Republican that is a huge supporter of law enforcement. and he travels quite a bit. And I say, I say, I made some kind of a comment, do you wear that police shirt or that military shirt or whatever? So you would be surprised how many times I get on a plane and he goes, I'm not shy. I'll just say, Republican or Democrat. And he says, more times than not, the person sitting next to me kind of whispers, says, don't tell anybody, but I
Yeah.
voted Trump.
Yeah.
It would be nice, some of you folks
Yeah.
out there, I get it if you're surrounded by liberals that just don't want to hear another point of view, that you want to keep that under wraps. But some of you folks, be a little bit more vocal as to who you support.
Yeah, for sure.
So I know you're busy. I know you got only a little bit of time. I'm going to get back to rescuing 911 before we close up, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about two great things that are going on here in 2025. I know you are doing A Cop's Life, another great podcast out there. I had a chance to listen to some of it, and it is awesome. And then we also have another Wounded Blue event coming up, the Law Enforcement Survival Summit in September. Can you talk a little bit about the podcast and the event before we let you go?
Sure. So the podcast is named after one of my most popular books called A Cop's Life, and it's different in that I have incredible guests from all aspects of law enforcement who really tell personal stories and gives a glimpse into the humanness of our police, and some of these stories are pretty shocking.
Mm-hmm.
Some are, it reveals what I call the heart behind the badge, and so I'm very proud of this podcast. It's really making a difference in the lives of a lot of police officers. So we have that, and then the National Law Enforcement Survival Summit is our fifth annual
Mm-hmm.
National Law Enforcement Survival Summit. It is every aspect of surviving a law enforcement career: physically, emotionally, psychologically, financially, spiritually. It's amazing. It is an incredible conference. So I urge anybody that serves or has served to come to this, because even though you've hung up your badge, doesn't mean you're not feeling the pain from that career. And bring your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
We do spousal support too. The Wounded Blue not only helps injured and disabled officers, whether those injuries are physical, emotional, psychological, but the same for the spouses. We have an entire spousal support team. So we're doing amazing work. If you don't know who the Wounded Blue is, go to thewoundedblue.org, see who we are, see what we do, give what you can. We're a nationwide charity. I take no salary. I live on my pension. All of the money that we get goes into programs, and we're literally saving lives, saving careers, saving marriages.
Mm-hmm.
And the summit is our signature program. If you're a cop and you have one training conference to go, September 22nd through the 25th at the fabulous Palace Station Hotel, come to this.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. I have gone to two law enforcement survival summits. I will be there for my third in a row for year fifth in Las Vegas in September. And I agree with you completely. If you're in law enforcement, if you're retired from law enforcement, if you're a spouse of law enforcement, great speakers and a lot of support there. And I also really encourage, from a networking standpoint, if you run a business that is supporting law enforcement in some way, shape, or form, I've gotten some great networking over there as the founder of the POCUA, as a representative of Police Mortgage and the National Police Federal Credit Union the last couple of years. I've made some great contacts, met a lot of great people. So if you run a business that serves these folks, even if it is the basest of tables, I think they start at like $1,000, so it's not like really expensive. Plus, you get to come to Vegas, and that's always a plus. I highly encourage you because there's a lot of good networking out there too. So go Buy Rescuing 911. Go to Amazon to buy it and leave a review.
Yes.
Go to thewoundedblue.org, and that is where they should go to find more information and to register for the Law Enforcement Survival Summit as well, correct?
You got it. That's it. And
Go there.
it's really inexpensive. It's
Yeah.
$395.
Yep.
And if you're a law enforcement leader, please look at this conference. Send your people to this. It will pay dividends in emotional and psychological survival.
Yep. I agree. And you could probably speak to this better than I can, but having spoke to a number of police officers over the last 20 years, I know, sometimes, you're dealing with something, and maybe it isn't so critical, but you're dealing with something. And as somebody who's, been sober for 5.5 years, I could certainly understand that. And you don't always want to go to your chief. You don't always want to go to your department. And I completely can understand that. And sometimes we just need a little bit of help. If you're kind of dealing with something and you just kind of want to go someplace and talk to somebody that isn't in your department, that's a good conference to go to, because everybody's going to
For
understand.
sure.
And I guarantee you there's going to be somebody over there that's gone through something pretty similar to what you're going through right now.
You hit it right on the head, man. Exactly. And if you own a business and you want to support law enforcement, I've got a very novel way for you to do it that won't cost anything out of your pocket, and you'll be able to have a major impact. Contact me directly, randy@thewoundedblue.org. It's randy@thewoundedblue.org, and let's have a conversation.
Yep, definitely go ahead and email Randy. I know personally he's very responsive. Randy is very responsive. I can say that for sure. And before we let you go, Randy, how can people find A Cop's Life out there?
It's on Amazon as well.
Uh,
All my books are on Amazon.
and the podcast they can find on Amazon,
And
Spotify, all those places.
wherever podcasts are found.
Wherever podcasts are found, just type in A Cop's Life and you'll find it.
You
Randy,
got it.
I know you're busy today. Thank you so much for coming on again today, man.
Always a pleasure, Ken.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you. And thank you to all of you who have either watched or listened to this episode of Public Safety Talk Radio. And we'll be back with you next week with another great guest. Public Safety Talk Radio is produced by the POCUA. POCUA is a consortium of financial institutions serving law enforcement as well as other first responders and public safety professionals. To learn more about our association and to find one of our credit unions or service providers near you, go to www.policecreditunions.com. And always remember, if you aren't working with one of our POCUA credit unions, you're just banking with an institution that just so happens to serve first responders. As a public safety professional, you and your family deserve better. Find a POCUA credit union today.